All right, hello YouTube. So we're back on the Grease Goblins channel. We're actually going to be doing a theory video, not really a prediction. I guess I could go into a prediction, but we're just going to be doing basically who is Jon Snow's parents. So I thought for the most part this was pretty set in stone that it's going to be Lyanna and Rhaegar. I mean, when you look at the show, right? George asked them. This is the big question on if they could like run the show. Who are Jon's parents? Well, we find out later in the show that the answer was Rhaegar and Lyanna. So I would heavily assume that it would be them. But I've been seeing other people who really champion Ned and Ashara. And don't get me wrong, it's a very interesting theory. And it does make sense. Like, I look at the evidence, it does make sense. Because I've been watching The Order of the Green Hand. It's a lot old. They're like, I think they're really older videos, but they are really good. They do a really good, accurate breakdown of the timeline and why they think it's not possible for the Rhaegar and Lyanna. And I have one simple solution to this. George, for his timeline stuff, is not the most accurate person in the world. I mean, you go back and there's a good amount of times where it just doesn't make sense. But my problem is, it just makes too much sense for Jon to be with Rhaegar and Lyanna. And it just makes way too much sense. Basically because Ned basically says multiple times that you're my blood. Yes, he says sons. Like, I think twice maybe. Because there's a part where basically it's when they get the dire wolves. Basically, Robb and Jon have a race, and they basically find the wolf and the stag. And Ned says something like, "Let's see what my sons have found," or something like that, or trouble they found, or whatever. And other stuff like that. But you have to remember, Ned's pretending that Jon is his son. Right? Like, he's gonna say it at some point. It's just far too common that Ned says Jon is my blood. It makes way too much sense for me because the whole war, right? You look at what Rhaegar was trying to do. Rhaegar wanted to have the third head of the dragon. So he runs off with Lyanna because his wife Elia can't have another child. They have that child, and Jon is supposed to be like Azor Ahai. It makes so much sense that, I don't know. It makes way too much sense to me. Now, could it be Ned and Ashara? Yes. The timeline makes sense. There are things that are kind of odd that George writes in, or because Catelyn initially thinks it's Ashara, and Ned gets very angry, like the most angry she's ever seen, and tells her to never like speak that name again or whatever, and that Jon is his blood. I think that's more not because Ashara is like Jon's like mother. I think it's because she actually did probably die, and George just kind of kept it open-ended and kind of a mystery because they never found her body. That Ned just kind of still has some feelings for her because, again, it's probably was his first love. So, I mean, that never really goes away, I feel like. Look at Robert. Robert's still hung over on Lyanna, and he didn't really know her that well. He liked the idea of her more than her, I feel like. So, I feel like it's very reasonable to assume Ned just has some feelings that are still there for her, and Ashara is being described as a very beautiful. And Catelyn, again, she's supposed to be like beautiful and stuff. The series does not do a good picture because the thing is, a lot of these characters are supposed to be like 35. Like, Catelyn looks like she's like 60 in the show. So it's kind of hard in that manner. Because a lot of the actors in Game of Thrones were like basically made to be older than they really were. Like Daenerys is a lot younger. She's, I believe, 14 when the show starts. Or not the show, the books. I'm not sure on that one. She could be younger, actually. I'm not 100% sure, but she's really young. Same as Jon. Jon's really young as well. Robb's young. So, what I'm getting at is that basically I think Ashara was more of just a love interest for Ned. I don't think it was this whole thing where he got her pregnant and all this stuff, and I don't see it. It just doesn't seem like Ned's way. Now protecting his sister's child makes sense. Now people have said with the Ashara thing that there could have been like a baby swap. So basically Lyanna and Rhaegar have a kid. Or wait. I think it's something like that. And then Ned and Ashara had a kid. So Ned takes their kid. And then they take basically Rhaegar's kid because he can pass as a Dane. It's too, I don't like it personally. I think most people probably agree with that. It is Rhaegar and Lyanna's, but I think it's a very interesting theory that I think is possible. Like, I'm not discounting it. It could happen. I just think the likelihood of Jon being a Targaryen makes more sense for the story in the long term with Daenerys, and having that really cool conflict. So that's where I stand on it. I think you definitely can make the argument that it's Ned and Ashara. But again, with the show confirming that it's Rhaegar and Lyanna, I think it's all but confirmed. Unless George at the last second goes, okay, let's just switch it up and say it's Shara and Ned. Why do I have my headset on? It provides no sound. I don't know. It's just weird. It's something I do when I record. It's just weird though. Also, if you guys disagree with me on this opinion, let me know what your reasoning is. Why you think Ned and Ashara are the true parents of Jon. Or if you agree with me and you want to back up the the Lyanna and Rhaegar, let me know as well. Also, I did want to say, it's so much more important to keep it a secret that it's Lyanna and Rhaegar's than it is Ned and Ashara, because for what we know, Ashara's dead. Okay, so I just don't understand why you'd have to hide that it's Ashara's kid. Everybody already knows it's somebody else's like kid. It just makes way more sense to take these liberties of sending him to the wall, doing this to keep it secret if it's something like Jon is legitimately the next in line. Now, the one thing that I do see with the Ned and Ashara thing is that Jon looks exactly like Ned. He looks exactly like him. Out of all the children, he looks the most like him. Like Robb, Sansa, I think Bran and Rickon as well, all look kind of like their mother. They have that Tully side of them. Arya does look like the Stark blood, kind of like Lyanna. That's what she's described as. But I don't know. I think that maybe Lyanna's traits are dominant to Rhaegar's. Because if Ashara was the mother, Jon didn't get any of Ashara's traits either. Because purple eyes, a lot of they have Valyrian blood as well in the Danes. And Jon doesn't actually get any of that either. So either way you go with it, they got the Stark traits. So I don't really like that as being the main source of people saying, okay, it's Ned's. As well as you have... So the big thing that I think people overlook when they say the Ned and Ashara thing, that Robert would just ask Ned and take a look at the kid and say if it was Ned's, and he would just agree to it. In most situations, yes, that's what Robert would do. This is if this came out, people would be like, oh, this is the actual heir to the throne. Robert would need a lot of explanation, okay, because this is potentially what people could, use as the person to overthrow Robert. And he also hates the Targaryens with a passion. It's the one thing he still holds on to because of Lyanna. And there's a reason Lyanna says, promise me to Ned to not, let Robert find this kid, because she knows what Robert would probably do. So I just think a lot of it points to Rhaegar and Lyanna. I think the timeline, even if it doesn't add up, Robert, I don't think, was thinking about that when he was making the story. He's had to go on back and had to do a lot of that stuff. And some of it just isn't going to add up. We've seen that multiple times with stuff in the past. But But yeah, let me know what you guys think on this theory. What theory you guys believe? If you think there's another person that possibly could be Ned's mother, if it could just be like a common person. I don't think that's the case, but I think really there's two main ones. It's either Ned and Ashara or Rhaegar and Lyanna. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to see more of these videos, subscribe. Let me know. And also what Game of Thrones character, or not Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire characters you guys would like to see me do next, or what theories you'd like to see me do next. And I will talk to you guys next week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. US Central Time. And have a great weekend, guys.